So, The Courtship is a dating show that's unlike anything else. So, what was the reason that you wanted to go on this one specifically?
It was a no-brainer for me. I at the time when I got approached for starting the casting process, which lasted it was months and months, to where there was a point where I kind of forgot that I was still kind of in the running to go and do it. And I was at the point where, like, for a year straight, had been in my van for 2 years at that point, and the first year was like I can do it by myself. Like, I love just the freedom of going places alone, and doing gig work and kind of chasing that. And I was fine by myself, but then the first year passed, and it was like, holy crap! Like, I need someone. Like, this is really cool, but I can only post about being with someone for so much. You get only so much validation out of that. So I spent like the year leading up to the courtship kind of gig chasing, but with the sole purpose, not for like elevating my career at that point, where the first year was for that. The second year, I was gig chasing just to travel, to try to find some girl in some small town, or like, or in some big town, or just like I had this massive romantic idea about, like, to be quite real with you, it's kind of embarrassing. I had this like fantasy of like going to like through like Yellowstone. I was watching Yellowstone at the time, so I like wanted to go through Montana, and some girl at some small bar or something, I end up working on her dad's ranch, or she hops in the van with me, or that's what I was kind of like going for. And so when I had a chance to go and fall in love in the UK in a castle, like, that was kind of what I'd been doing on my own, just on a much grander scale.
So, how did your modern world dating skills apply to this whole other Bridgerton 1800s world?
Wow. To be honest with you, I lucked out. Like, the whole experience, like, we really were transported back in time. Like, we didn't have our phones. I remember one day kind of getting a slap on the wrist because I was asking like someone in wardrobe if the Titans won, like my football team back from Tennessee, and they were just like, "No, immerse yourself. Like, football doesn't exist yet." And so that's something though that I had been wanting to do. Like, I consider myself like good with talking, like good with, I don't want to say spitting game because that's like cringe to me to say, but I don't know, like, I always thought I was good with like speaking to women, but I hated the thought of like DMing a woman first and then meeting up. Like, I just, for whatever reason, that just, like, I wanted to meet someone who I'm going to pursue in an organic way. Like, let's meet in a supermarket, like just in person. I wanted the first connection to, like, I wanted to have it be as real and personal as possible.
In the most recent episode, we see things are getting pretty intense, especially with like the whole castle drama, staying at the castle. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's so hard to like explain. It really was. Yeah, it's reality TV and everything, but that was a heavy time period of the shooting process. Like, that's when, it's cliche to say, but that's when things got really real. I mean, that's when real feelings started to come out, and really starting to look like, I think Nicole and I started to look at each other at that point, like, more a serious level of like, hey, we're talking about marriage here. Like, we're this, we it just got more real. And what I can say about it is, I mean, how could you not want to stay the night in a castle with a beautiful woman? I mean, that's number one. Any chance I could to have extra time with her, like, I was gonna take it. And she asked me to, and I mean, it was one of the most special nights I had there. So I actually still have my Bacchanal crown. So I stole a lot of the little knickknacks from set. So
And I think it's really obvious to viewers that you are starting to develop like real, genuine feelings. But was that something that you expected going into the show, or did you kind of just think like, oh, this is a cool experience?
it's funny because, like, when you go into a show where the main premise, I mean, your goal is to fall in love, it's it almost feels cheap to go in like fully expecting to fall in love, because then what if you just brainwash yourself, and what if you're not, like, what if there aren't feelings there? And but because you told yourself, hey, I'm going to do it, so no matter who it is, no matter what connection we have, I'm gonna do it. I think a lot of guys do make that mistake where they tell themselves, no matter what, this is the end all be all. I just went in kind of more so with the thought of, this is possible, and I'm going to open myself up completely. Like, I know I'm going to open myself up to the point where I could get really hurt, or maybe have the coolest fairy tale story of all time.
So, part of being open, though, especially with this show, you're putting yourself out there in a lot of different ways. You're writing poems, you're expressing your feelings. Is there one cringe moment that you're like, that's the cringiest thing I could have ever done? I don't want to rewatch that.
Oh man, can I zoom you back with a list in like an hour? Like, I'm telling you, like, yeah, I look like ET half the time I'm watching these episodes. Like, but a wine glass and a blanket over my head, and I'm just like, don't do it, don't say this. I think one of my favorite moments was my sword fighting comment in the fencing episode, just because I remember specifically in that moment, like nonchalantly saying something that I didn't think would be used, and sword fighting with some dudes. And but I'd say it again. I mean, I use that joke, corny joke, all too often. So, but that was one I watched it and I was like, I can't believe I just watched myself say that on USA.
But you weren't embarrassed by it, so
No, I
it's not
mean,
a
no, I
bad
would do it
deal.
again. I was just could
Yeah.
not believe it. Yeah. Yeah.
I think I read that you are a big fan of Matthew McConaughey rom-coms. Is that true?
Massive. I
Okay.
think I've listened to this audiobook like 3 or 4 times on the flight to the UK, ironically. Yes.
Okay, so with that being said, I have a question for you. So if you could describe your whole experience on the show by
Yeah.
one Matthew McConaughey rom-com title, what would you pick?
Oh my gosh. This is my favorite question yet. Holy crap. Oh my gosh. Let's go with, I can think of so many like euphemisms and whatnot. I could see How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but also not, because there was nothing like Nicole was, I you can't compare her to, yeah, to Kate Hudson in that movie. That's just not fair. Um, we'll say Fool's Gold. That's the most adventurous one.
My final question for you is this show is about finding love. Do you feel that you fell in love during this process?
Um, gosh, you'll have to tune in to find out. It's I mentioned it very soon on the show. I absolutely opened myself up, and I'm glad I did, because what I went in looking for, definitely started to happen. So, tune in and you'll definitely get the answer.